This is Barry McKnight, the voice of the Troy Trojans. You're tuned in to the Phillip Jordan Show podcast.
The Miami Hurricanes have advanced to the national championship game due to a game-winning rushing touchdown by Carson Beck. This is a special edition of the Phillip Jordan Show podcast. We are reacting to what just happened in the Fiesta Bowl between Ole Miss and Miami, and I am not alone to do this. Joining me is Brandon Eisenman. He is the host of the LSU Breakdown podcast, of course, a longtime friend of me and the show and all good things. One of my groomsmen when I'm getting married in a few months. So Brandon joining me as we're going to come here a few minutes and talk about the Miami game beating Ole Miss. And Brandon, wow, we just witnessed a classic college football playoff game.
Yeah, Phillip, that was one of the best CFP games I've watched in a while. Very, very good finish.
Yeah, it was. And, early on, the two teams were filling out defensively. I mean, Miami dominated the time of possession in this game. And I just think, too, this is just, again, a story. I mean, a team just getting hot in the playoff. And, really, Miami had played well this year since SMU, since being upset by SMU. And really, the ACC, and I'll say it, they're stupid, tie-breaking situation. I mean, Miami should have been – they were the proper team to play for the ACC championship game. But they didn't get to, but they did get in. And then just winning that slugfest against A&M, upsetting Ohio State last week, where they just dominated up front. And then here – and that's kind of like been the story for me, Miami. And Carson Beck, we'll get to him second. Obviously, he scores the game-winning touchdown at the end, the rushing touchdown. But for me, it's been the Miami offensive and defensive fronts that have really been the story for this team and why they've been able to move on. Now go to the national championship game, play either Indiana or Oregon.
Yeah, both of those fronts really have been the main storyline for Miami. Miami having the ball for just over 41 minutes in that game against Ole Miss really kind of sets the tone and paints the picture of how that game really went. Phillip, holding the ball for 41 minutes, you're probably going to win the game. And late in the fourth quarter, they needed a touchdown. Carson Beck used his legs, won Miami the game. Props to both teams, man. It was a really good game. I think I had Ole Miss in my on my ESPN Bowl Mania picks, but I got stuck with Miami in the college football playoff pool for work, and I'm trying to win a little bit of money, so I need the Canes to really go all the way. But man, what a classic game that was.
Yeah, of course, I did not have any money on the line with this one as you did, but I was rooting for Ole Miss just because from the SEC standpoint of things. And, man, I got to say this, Trinidad Chambliss, once again, he showed some great stuff in this game. And I am just saying with him, I think we can argue he may have been the best quarterback of these four teams left, just what he's able to do. And, it's for them, I think the Ole Miss side of things, which I don't want to kind of leave, just talk about Miami. Just a story. And, of course, obviously the team you have a podcast about, their former coach, Ole Miss former coach is now your coach. There at LSU, but just to be able to kind of keep going without Lane and be that close. I mean, just the story it would have been them, especially if it had been Indiana playing for the national championship game. But I also look at with Miami in this game, 191 yards rushing in the game, again, controlled the line of scrimmage. And it really felt like there were opportunities for Miami to really separate themselves. I mean, there was a couple interceptions that Miami should have had in this one, and they just couldn't get it. There was the one where the Ole Miss receiver didn't catch it. They looked like the Miami DBs were playing hot potato with each other. And And also the one, obviously, there's one with the deep pass. Chandler does the deep deflection intercept. So Miami had some opportunities too, but the Carson Beck side of this, and I'm actually going to pull in some comments. Wes Pruitt is all over, and also Jessica Landingham. Thank you for your comments so far here on the stream. So let's look at this. Wes Pruitt, he got a great comment here. Miami is the best team in attrition in the entire tournament. Time possession, third downs, 20 games for Miami. Yeah, because Miami third down. West just brought up a great point. Miami in this one, and this is why we're doing this too. We're not just doing this for me and Brandon to talk. We're still doing this because we want to get just interaction with the people who just saw this game and what you're thinking. Third down efficiency for Miami, 11 and 19. Because me and you talked about this off air. Ole Miss was 2 of 10, 2 of 2 on fourth down, and that was B2 for Miami. Those fourth down conversions. Again, being able to run the ball, efficient offense. Beck had the one interception. The rushing numbers, again, I said 191. Penalties too. Now penalties, Miami that kept Ole Miss in it, but yes, that the stuff there with Miami up front. I mean, again, the time of possession, as you mentioned, and then the running the ball and just, finding a way, their offense clicking. And this was the best game from Carson Beck in the playoffs so far. He, in this game, was 13 of 37, 268, 2 touchdowns. Like I said, he had a 1 interception, but just everything moving part, and they just played winning football at the end when they had to.
Yeah, they most certainly did, and Carson Beck was obviously a big part of that. Phillip, you brought up the penalties for Miami, the 10 penalties they had, and a couple of those in the second half were defensive penalties that I thought were going to end up costing Miami the game. There was a targeting call. There was a roughing the passer call. Ole Miss goes down and scores, takes the lead. Miami comes right back, converts 2 big third downs on that final drive, and then obviously Carson Beck caps it off with that touchdown rush. And I was watching the game, and they said on the ESPN broadcast that was Carson Beck's first rushing touchdown since Week 3 against South Florida, which is crazy to think that Beck hasn't had a rushing touchdown in 3-4 months. But yeah, I really thought the penalties there in the fourth quarter were going to be the end for Miami. But man, they battled. They went down, did what they needed to do, got the win. Look, props to Ole Miss, man. They haven't been this good of a football program in a very, very long time. And Trinidad Chambliss is an elite quarterback, and they almost got the job done, man. Props to him for making it this far. I said before the season started that Ole Miss was a legit championship contender, and they were, give or take, 1-2 plays away from moving on.
Yeah, there was a couple runs in the game too with Carson Beck that he picked up some big yards and first down. Not something you just think of with him. He's a good enough athlete to get you 10 yards or first down if he has to running. I mean, he's not going to do something that Trinidad Chambliss would do or some other quarterbacks would do that we will see, or Dante Moore would do tomorrow night as well. But in that play too, the awareness, because you can watch that play where he scores that touchdown, 18 seconds left. Ole Miss is completely selling out to make sure none of the Miami wide receivers are going to get open. They completely sell out to that. And he sees the opening. And there really was no one there to stop Beck. When he took off, you could see it. And he knew it. It's just a reaction before he even gets in the end zone. He knew he was going to score on that one.
Yeah, he did. If you go back and look at that play, Phil, I'm not sure if you caught it in real time or not. Miami was running a trips on the left side, and nobody was containing Carson Beck. So he had that whole left side of the field wide open on that touchdown.
Yeah, and now here's an interesting comment from Wes. I figured we were going to get into this a little bit. Wes Pruitt also says the SEC dominance of college football has ended. It was a good run, but it meant more to the Canes tonight. So I know, and Wes, I will let you have it this one time. I will let you slander the SEC once. in my stream. We will have to have a conversation next time you do so. Just playing West. Go check out 4-Star Sports Media and his work over at Last Broncos Football. Great stuff from West. Does a great job covering Memphis, Arkansas, and all those teams. But and obviously now the SEC gets knocked out, and that was a big thing. Their bowl record, how they performed in the playoffs. We could have a Big Ten team win a third straight national championship, and I kind of don't. I'm not sure is Miami's defensive front better than Indiana's. I don't know. I'm ready to say that yet. We've seen Indiana impact so many really good quarterbacks this year, so I'm not really ready to say that. I need to kind of watch a little bit more. I think going into a potential championship game with them in Miami if Indiana beats Oregon tomorrow. But the SEC, I will still say this. 1 through 16, top to bottom, SEC is still the best conference in college football. But I will give this, there's better top teams in the Big Ten right now than there are in the SEC because I think that we just don't have a dominant – we haven't in the last 2 years really haven't had a dominant team in the SEC. It's just been – that's just how it's been. You're looking at now 3 straight years and SEC teams not even in the – going to be factoring into a national championship game. But this whole death or this downfall of the SEC, I don't believe it because we will still see on draft day that the SEC will have more picks than anybody else. That's just the truth. It's going to happen. The SEC will have more picks. And I think, and obviously NIL and all this other stuff, portal has equaled the SEC because I was telling people tonight, you're never going to see a dominant team what Alabama did ever again in college football. I'm not saying this for Alabama fans that they're never going to do it. Nobody's ever going to do it. And because of portal and all this other stuff, because now you cannot load up your bench with 5 stars anymore because these guys are going to say, I can just go get paid and go play somewhere else. But I don't know. We're coming off this game. Everybody wants to say the SEC's dominance is over. Yes, I know the SEC championship for a national title, that's not going to be there. But I'm not really willing to write the obituary on the SEC quite yet.
No, I'm not either, Phillip. Sure, Nick Saban's been retired from Alabama for a couple of seasons. Georgia lost in the playoff. Oklahoma lost, obviously, to Alabama. Bama gets trounced by Indiana. Ole Miss just lost this evening. But look, I think the SEC is going to be right back in it next year. I'm not trying to spoil anybody's party here or be biased, but I think LSU will be in the college football playoff under Lane Kiffin in year 1 next year. That's just my personal take. If you want to come at me, I'm at Eisman on X. Feel free. But no, the dominance in the SEC is not over. I mean, the SEC ran college football for so long, especially with Alabama. And at some point, that's going to come to a halt. It's never going to fully end, I don't think. But, you're going to get a year or two here and there where, a Big Ten team like Indiana and Oregon or ACC team like this year with Miami that, they're going to take over. But there's still so much talent in the SEC, and the dominance it's not over.
No, it's not. I think it's just, and I've gotten lately. Yes, I'm a big SEC guy. My Twitter handle used to be P Jordan SEC. But yeah, I want good ball. I don't really care who the champion comes from. I think that whole argument or that whole thing, SEC Big Ten or SEC versus whatever, is a little bit played out in my opinion. Especially now with the 12-team playoff. I don't think conference dominance or whatever really matters. And people bring the bowls into this. I don't think that should be part of the argument because we know this. Most of these SEC teams, half the team or the bulk of the good players have either hit the portal or have opted out. These are not the same rosters that we saw during the regular season. And I think that's why some people have tuned out on the bowl games. I know I have. I have. I don't really, I'll be honest, outside of the Troy game, wearing the hat, people watching, I didn't really watch any of the bowl games. I watched the playoff games. I watched the Troy one. And that was pretty much it. Because for me, you got to bring in some kind of emotional attachment to the bowl games, and that's just not for me. And my opinion is that the players don't care, I don't care, and I think that's how a lot of people are feeling about the bowls. And I know I could get some heat for saying that, but that's just kind of where I am at the whole deal. And we talked about the SEC. I mean, I feel like we will be getting an expanded playoff next year too. But anyways, we're here to talk about what Miami did. We kind of went on a tangent there. I'm kind of interested what they can do. I think obviously we're all just going to assume it's Indiana they're going to play. And I've said this for like the last month. It's hard to beat the same team twice in 1 year. We saw it when Alabama and Georgia played in the SEC championship game the second time. We saw it last week with Georgia and Ole Miss. Now, I know some people say, well, Tulane and Ole Miss was rematched. That's different. We know Tulane was overmatched against Ole Miss. We just knew that was the case in that one. But going into this now with Indiana and Oregon, I do think Miami can match up really well with both teams. I think they can hang with both teams just because of what they can do up front on the offensive and defense line, running the ball, as long as Carson Beck's not throwing interceptions. And Wes Pruitt put in here in the chat talking about how well Carson Beck has done against ranked teams and his overall record as starter. And that's all there. Those numbers are correct. He's not wrong there. But it's also, and for me is why I picked Ole Miss, and I have picked against Miami in every game in this playoff because I don't trust Carson Beck. I still believe there's a point where he's going to make these big critical errors, and I just can't get it out of my mind because he's done that the last 2 seasons in college football. But it all comes down up front. Now, I think if Oregon upsets Indiana, I think all bets are off, and Miami could very well win the national title because I think they can get after Dante Moore just like Indiana has. Who are you leaning between Oregon and Indiana for Friday night?
Phillip, I'm going to lean Indiana. I know it's hard to beat the same team twice. In the same season, we've seen that, narrative be played out a couple of times, especially in the playoff here. But man, Indiana is such a good team on both sides of the ball. I will say one thing about Miami's defensive front is they really struggled tonight to get to Trinidad Chambliss. I think they only sacked him once or twice in the game. I know at one time during the game it was at least once, and that was in the fourth quarter. I don't know if I can't remember if they got to him again or not. But
he was only sacked one time.
Yeah, okay, just the one time then. Whether it's Dante Moore or Fernando Mendoza on the opposite side, I feel like Miami's going to have a tough time getting to that quarterback, especially if it is Dante Moore, because he's kind of the same skill set as Trinidad Chambliss is, more of a dual threat, which Mendoza can run as well. But I'm leaning Indiana to win that game tomorrow, and then if Carson Beck can play the way he played tonight, I think Miami might win the title. But I think it's going to be a defensive battle, regardless if it's Miami and Indiana.
Yeah, it's something we didn't talk about, and going into this, and I'll say this too. Let me course correct what I was about to say. Ole Miss moved the ball in this. Something that needs to be talked about is going out of this is that missed field goal, because when you kind of look back how the game played out, which it could have changed some strategies if that field goal was made. I know that it's a 2-point game, and then they can kick a field goal to win. That was off the upright is one of them things. And Ole Miss moved the ball pretty much in this game, but they had to settle for field goals. Field goals attempts were the ones they didn't get. So that was a big difference here. And then we got a comment here too as well from YouTube. Appreciate the comment. Anthony Manzano 3551. He left us 2 comments. Phil, can you guys please explain to me how rare it is during a Hail Mary play referees call a PI with the amount of hand fighting both the DB and receiver do during that play? Look, I think by the letter of the law, you could say that was pass interference. But I just think as football fans, it's the same thing with basketball. You just don't expect them. It's very rare for them to throw the flag or call a whistle in basketball at the end of the games. It's just usually at the end of games in football and basketball, the referees are going to just let the players decide it most of the time. I'll say probably 90 to 95% of the time. I think unless it's just without a shadow of a doubt interference or a flag, they're not going to throw it. And you maybe could argue there was a little bit on both sides between both players. It looked a little bit more obvious to me, just to me. That's my eyes seeing this, that the Ole Miss receiver was put on a little bit. But I just think at the end of the day, referees just aren't going to call it.
Yeah, no, I agree, Philip. I don't think they're going to call it either. But what I do disagree with is I think both of them were hand fighting. I think it was fair game there. Even if you call it and you give Ole Miss the ball at the 20-yard line at that point, I mean, were they going to score? Who knows? But I mean, I know the Ole Miss players wanted the flag thrown and the coaches did too. But if both players are hand fighting like that, they're just going to let it go.
Yeah, they are. It's just kind of, it's one of them things, accepted and expected things that we're just going to see here. Now, Anthony also left another comment. I just started following you guys as a Hurricanes fan. I'm not going to come in and brag that we beat you. You guys gave us a heart attack that fourth quarter. Look, hey, no Ole Miss fandom here. Obviously, Brandon, he's an LSU fan. He stole their coach. His team did, anyways. And I'm Auburn Rider and go to Troy and just like here talking ball. But hey, SEC guy for me at least, we know that. And look, it was a great game. It was a great game, and came down to the wire. And it was a shame that one of these two teams had to lose it out. But Anthony, I appreciate you. I hope you did hit follow on YouTube and podcast. If you live an audio podcast, you'll find the Phillip Jordan Show. And look, we will be talking some Miami football next week on the show for sure, and getting ready for a national championship game. Any final thoughts, Brandon, on this game? I just feel like Miami, Carson Beck made the plays that he had to make. That one touchdown by Tony was great because it was like a short pass that he took to the house on a touchdown where he kind of squirted in between some defenders. He's a weapon for them. Can take the ball in for a score at any moment too, with what he did there. So, final thoughts, Miami and Ole Miss.
Yeah, I've got two very quick ones, Philip. The first one being the doink field goal that Ole Miss made to make it a 17-16 game. I really thought the kicker was going to miss that after he hit the left upright. But it went in. They made it a 1-point game. Didn't really change much from there. I mean, they scored later on in the game, take the lead, and then obviously, Carson Beck wins it for Miami. Second thing is the Hurricanes can win the national championship on their home field in Miami. So kudos to them if they do it. They might be throwing a parade in a couple of weeks down in Miami, maybe on the beach. But yeah, we'll see how it plays out, who wins tomorrow. But the Canes are on to the title, and I kind of need them to win, just for my sake.
All right, one last thing, because Brandon does host a podcast, which you go check out on all your favorite podcast platforms, talking LSU. So I have to ask this. We've seen some quarterbacks going some places in the portal. Who's going to be LSU's quarterback next year?
I mean, Philip, at this point, it could be me, honestly. I really don't know. Look, they lost out on Brendan Sorsby. Michael Van Buren transfers to South Florida. From what I've been reading and seeing from credentialed LSU football media, Sam Leavitt may not end up coming to Baton Rouge. I know he had a visit in Tennessee for Wednesday and Thursday, and he extended his visit until Friday, so until tomorrow. And I don't think he's going to come. Damon Williams from Washington entered the portal, and a lot of LSU fans thought that maybe he was coming to Baton Rouge. He is now going back to Washington because of some, let's just be honest, there were some contract things that if he would have left, the team that he would have went to would have had to pay his contract for his NIL deal. It was like $4 million, I think. So he ended up going back to Washington. there is a 5-star quarterback out of USC. I don't want to butcher the guy's name. I think it's like Husan Longwood or something. I could be getting his last name wrong. That potentially could be looked at. But, man, other than that, I honestly, off the top of my head, I don't know. But I will say this quickly, Phillip. LSU's got to get at least 2 quarterbacks. They have no scholarship quarterbacks on the roster right now. They have a preferred walk-on, and that's it. So they're going to have to do something and do it quickly.
Sure. Yeah, you would think the Deuce Knight stuff would be playing into it, just because of, when he kind of reopened his recruitment when Auburn did flip him for Notre Dame. Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss were pushing hard for him. So, there obviously is a relationship with Lane Kiffin. So, I think that. But I've also seen that he could end up back at Auburn. There's now some conversations that Deuce Knight could end up back with Auburn. So I don't know. That's one that's out there. It's just, with Lane Kiffin, do you know if he's ready to go to start? I mean, he played against Mercer, the 6 touchdowns. But that's really the only playing in action we've seen him with Auburn. So, anyways. We did get one last comment from Jessica Landenham, and this is a good one. How come the one catch from the Miami could have been seen as inbounds if there was more definite toe point than heel versus the toes just still touching before the heel? I kind of thought that was going to get ruled a catch, but I wasn't shocked that it didn't. It's kind of one of those iffy kind of situations.
Yeah. Look, initially I thought it was a catch. And then they showed the replay. I was like, yeah, he may have gotten the toe down, but if you look clearly, man, the heel was out of bounds. Mm-hmm. His back heel was out of bounds.
It's got to be the whole foot.
Yeah.
That stays in.
Yeah, it looked incredible one-handed catch by Malachi Doney, but obviously they ruled it incomplete.
We won't question the effort at all.
There were some questionable calls in that game, though, I will say.
Look, I don't get into the referee bashing too much because I think there's questionable calls in every game. So unless it's Oklahoma and Auburn and the receiver does an illegal play and it gets scored a touchdown on it. But other than that, I digress. So, all right. So we are going to do this again tomorrow. After Oregon and Indiana, we will come live on here on my channel once again and talk about it. So Brandon will be back here for me with that. So it should be a lot of fun next week as we do that. And then we'll have a national championship game set up for Monday, January 19th. Brandon, real quickly, where can people find LSU Breakdown?
Yeah, you can find LSU Breakdown over on Apple or Spotify. I'm probably going to start doing some video stuff here in the near future with that. I'm going to have an episode coming out probably either Sunday or early Monday of next week. Pretty much talking about the downfall of the LSU basketball team because they started out 12-1 and now they're 12-2. Just got manhandled by South Carolina. They were down 25 at halftime. Only lost by 10, but and we're going to talk some transfer portal stuff as well. Maybe LSU will have a quarterback signed by then.
All right, everybody go check it out. Again, be back here, Phillip Jordan Show podcast for another special edition as we will have an instant reaction to Indiana and Oregon. All right, guys. I hope everybody has a great rest of their evening. We'll talk to you tomorrow night. Bye-bye.